Hey everybody, my name is Ehsan and I'm a product manager here at PayPal, and my colleagues Nitin, Hemant, and Shubham are excited to walk you through the work that we're doing here for agentic payments. So let's talk about how PayPal is enabling that future of agentic commerce. Before we jump into that, I want to walk you through why we think we're positioned to help you do this and enable your agents. So for the very first time, PayPal is enabling agents to pay on behalf of users instead of leaning on them to click on payment links and buttons. As our leaders talked about yesterday, this is a big shift for the company, and we're very excited to walk you through how we're helping you enable to do this. What this means is that you're able to tap into a vast two-sided network of 430 million accounts of consumers and merchants to jumpstart all your agentic commerce applications. What this means is that your agents can tap into all these wallets and financial instruments seamlessly to have a very smooth experience on behalf of your users here. What that also means is that using our tokenization and vaulting stack here, we handle all the risk, compliance, and PCI, so your agents can just focus on paying, and we take this burden entirely off your shoulders. You probably didn't even know that these problems out there existed, and you don't have to because we have you covered entirely for this. When it comes to all the different use cases here, we have all the different use cases here covered. We're going to walk you through demos that show how this looks like. But for those, we'll also be introducing a new concept here called the payment agent token inside the wallet to have a very seamless interaction here with agents so you don't have to authenticate every single time. For PayPal users with wallets, we have a secure solution there to authenticate and access the wallet. And then for guest users, we have multiple solutions there to help enable your agents to interact with existing guest accounts on file, and also new guest users that don't have any credit card information on file to securely take that in a very secure and compliant way for your agents. For this first demo here, we're going to walk you through what's available right now in Sandbox for you to start using and getting your agent applications up and running. And my colleagues are going to walk you through this first demo that shows that flow end to end. And then in the later demos, we're going to show more advanced use cases here that show all the different products across PayPal, all the payment products that we're doing, as well as more advanced agentic use cases that we think you'll be excited about.
I'm Agent Hemant. I'm a senior staff EM here at personalization platform with Checkout. Let's kind of quickly look into the demo first and then go into the details. Here's a user sitting on a merchant site. They're saying that I want to buy a hoodie. All right, that's great. There's some API calls being made. Is it MCP? What's happening here? We'll get into the details. It came back with a reply saying that, hey, I found 2 hoodies, one for women and men. What do you want? And the user says, well, I would like to buy women's white hoodie, extra large. All right, now the LLM is trying to infer from the prompt that the user gave, and it's coming back and said, hey, good, I would like to help you with checkout. Can you give me your email ID? The user is going to type the email ID. All of this is in Sandbox, as Ishan mentioned, and hence we're using a Sandbox email ID here. The email ID has been identified, and then there's an OTP that goes in to this email ID, and there is also a multi-factor authentication that happens. So multi-factor authentication is needed, so the user is authorized and identified. We saw that the notification comes here on the screen. The user says, hello, yes, that's me. That goes to the native checkout app. And after the notification is done, the user says, yes, I have given the consent. Please go ahead and do the checkout. Now, the bot knows that the user has X card. Here, it's Visa card. And they know the address is XYZ and says, shall I ship it here? The user says, yes, good, ship it there. And bang, the shipment happens. The merchant is also notified the shipment is done, the order completion is done. So imagine this interface sitting on like Gemini, Copilot, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, anywhere, right? So there is an end-to-end transaction that's happening. The consumer is happy, the merchant is notified, and and whatever they wanted to buy has been processed. So this is the end-to-end experience that we have. And now to Agent Shubham to dive into the details. Let's get into the depths of this and see what's happening inside. Shubham, over to you. And Shubham, I envy this guy because he has the best Postman collection in PayPal that I know. He has everything internal and external. Whenever we throw a use case to him, he's like, okay, let me open up my Postman. Let's see all the collections here. So let's talk in detail on what's happening here, what is the meat, and what's cool about what we have built here.
So let's go into it.
And I'm going to wear the hat of the audience here. and I'm going to roast Shubham a bit.
Okay.
All right, can you pause right there, Shubham?
Let me try that. Yes.
The user is saying that I want to buy a hoodie. What's happening here? What's so special?
So this is where we are invoking PayPal's Commerce API. The products are from merchant catalogs. So it's not PayPal products, it's merchants' products coming back from through Commerce API on the MCP client. The thing here is we're going to have a talk on Commerce API tomorrow. Please attend that. That's where we'll dive into what the Commerce API is. So once that is done, and bam, these are the products. So as we saw in the previous video, the user is looking for hoodies, and the hoodies are showing up.
So Shubham, you're saying that this is an MCP client that PayPal built?
Oh yeah, so we built the MCP client, we also built the MCP server, and we made sure that all our good APIs are backing that MCP server. So now, as it was said, it's already on Sandbox, so merchants can come in and they can try this MCP server and see what's actually being built by PayPal.
And this is a remote MCP server.
Oh, this is a remote MCP server. It's already deployed, it's out there, people can play with it.
Interesting. Okay, the user is saying that they want to buy a white hoodie, extra large.
So this is where either you can build your own MCP client, or as Hemant said, you can use Claude, OpenAI, Perplexity, Vertex, whatever. It has to be an MCP client which can connect to a remote MCP server. That's it. You do not have to build your own UI if you don't want to. But if you want to customize your MCP client a bit, you can do that too.
And there's an LLM sitting behind this, right? And can it be any LLM? Is there any preference?
There is no preference. Your MCP client can be backed by any LLM you like. If you want to use open source, you can use open source. If you want to use something which is proprietary, you can use that as well. So it is pretty flexible.
But it just needs the feature of tool and function calling, and it should work fine.
Exactly.
Okay. So once the user says this, we did see there in the demo that the LLM is figuring out and saying that you want to make a purchase. Like, how did that happen? How did the LLM know that, okay, the user is trying to do a purchase, I need to ask an email and try to figure out the auth and stuff, right?
So this is where PayPal MCP server comes into picture. The tools which are there on MCP server are good enough to tell the MCP client what should be the intent. If the MCP client, if the buyer communicating with the MCP client is showing an intent of purchase, MCP client is saying, okay, I think you're trying to buy something, please enter your email, and we'll go from there. That's how we start the transaction.
Okay, once email is entered, what really happens?
Once the email is entered, there are three things which are happening behind the scenes. We are making sure that first the transaction starts, second is the authentication comes into play, and third, we are also trying to figure out what is the best way to pay, which is really important because there are so many myriad ways of paying something. So understanding what is the best way for this particular transaction, for this particular buyer, on this particular merchant is very, very important.
So you're saying that we already have an API that would help us to figure out what's the best way to pay for this user?
Yes, we do. And it's all also behind MCP server.
That's interesting. So the email has been passed. It's talking to the MCP server, figuring out whether I know this user or not. And then there is the identity flow that kicks in.
Yes. So as you can see, we are purposefully showing what's happening on the logs as well. We are making sure that we are not trying to game the system. We are trying to show what actually happens so that merchant can actually look at this and say, okay, maybe I should try this. Maybe I should try to build something like this. So here, PayPal identity comes into picture. We are triggering an app alert. We are making sure that authentication is not happening on the MCP client. PayPal powers, risk, everything comes into picture, and the privacy is maintained, and the authentication happens on the native PayPal app.
Okay, cool. I think we have the identity folks here, Money, Value, and folks. They would be running a lightning session. If you have more questions on identity, you should definitely reach out to them.
So this is where we see the pop-up. So this is what the PayPal's native app pop-up is. Once you approve here, only then the MCP client is able to pull the wallet details, which is really, really important.
So what we demoed here is us cracking MFA. Is that the thing? For MFA, we need knowledge. We need like where the user is, what the user has, and who the user is. Yeah. Instead, in these three, two of them should be met for MFA. Right?
Knowledge, inheritance, possession.
Yeah.
So we have cracked that as well, which is, I think it's a game-changing thing.
That's interesting because MFA is going to change a lot of agentic flows and how they operate, and it's good to see that PayPal Identity has kind of cracked the MFA flow for us.
So this is where we see the wallet. We have also made sure if you just want to breeze through checkout, the wallet or the FI and the shipping address which are showing up here are the preferred shipping address and the preferred FI for that particular user.
So if the user doesn't like this, right, they say, I want to use a different card or my address should be XYZ. Is that possible too?
Oh yeah, it's all possible. Okay. You can come in and say to your MCP client that, oh, I want to change the FI, can you show me other FIs? It will show up all your FIs and then you can say, okay, transact with Visa, transact with MX, transact with MasterCard, and it will go forward.
Awesome.
Same with shipping address. You can come in and say, no, I do not want to get shipped to San Jose, ship it to Tennessee or somewhere else. It will do that.
Awesome. Okay, now it says the consent is given, all the background check and verification has been done. We could see the logs there. Is that the case? Like there is an approval that's happening?
Oh yeah. So this is where the buyer approval is happening. And as this transaction we are doing on MCP client, and let's say if it's a Claude, OpenAI or Perplexity or Vertex, one of those clients and merchant is not in the loop, we are making sure merchant is also informed that there has been a transaction on your website for this particular product by this particular buyer. PayPal is giving the whole suite to make this happen.
I think this is the meat of the entire conversation here because in most of the demos that we have seen, I know we have friends from here, OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, everybody here in the room. I think the most crucial piece for any agentic commerce is merchant being notified. So we are saying in this flow, the merchant is being notified that the order is placed organically. There is no extra effort being done by the MCP client or the server. So in the backgrounds, for the merchant, it feels as if the user navigated their website and bought the product. And the order notification is done, order is processed, everything is smooth.
Exactly. The important aspect when we spoke with all this LLM folks is, they said they don't want to be merchant of record. This is where PayPal geared up and said, okay, how do we solve this problem? We want to make sure that the surface is clean. PayPal comes in and partners with them and makes sure that merchant is also in the loop and getting all the notification and important aspects of the whole transaction. So yeah, this is how it is.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think we have kind of covered the end-to-end demo here, starting from where the user logs into the site. It could be a merchant site. It could be any other MCP host, irrespective of the merchant site. We use the Commerce API to fetch all the product recommendations. Then we say, then we identify the user. We make sure the MFA is compliant. Then we go ahead and say, this is your shipping address. This is your preferred way of paying. We know what payment works. It can be PayPal. It can be Venmo. There are the payment-ready APIs which can help us to figure out what is the best way that the user can pay with less friction. Then the user confirms. The merchant is notified. The consumer is happy. The merchant is happy. Everything is smooth and everything is agentic in nature. Everything is inline. This is great to see. Yeah. Awesome. I think we could probably go ahead with the next set of demos. Do you want to pitch in a bit?
Yeah, so the next ones we're going to show here are for the guest flows. The first one here we're going to show on the guest flows is about an existing card user here, an existing account that we have, a guest user account that we're pulling in with the agents. They're going to walk you through it. And then the second one we're going to show for when there's no guest account on file, how to take in securely all that credit card information.
Awesome. So far what we saw was on Sandbox, end-to-end, everything working fine. We are going to give you the MCP URLs and way to connect for the hackathons. What we are seeing here is more of a guest flow, right? What we saw previously was an user who was a PayPal user. When the email ID was provided, we identified they were a PayPal user. We sent them an authentication and authorization. So the user would come in and then say, I'm planning to go on a camping trip next month. Can you please help me to buy some cooler, right? Again, it's the same set of Commerce API that gets used and figures out what are some of the coolers that we can suggest this user. This can also be on a set of cohort. We might know where this person is in terms of their geolocation and their preference, and we can give recommendations. There are various models that are operating to figure out what the recommendation should be. And we came out with some recommendations on Igloo and some of the other coolers that we think are good. And the user says, I want to buy the Igloo. And you can see the hosted card is kind of rendered inline within the chat interface. The user can enter their data. And because this is an hosted, isolated card, all of this is PCI compliant. Maybe some small subset of PCI rules the client should kind of give a green tick, which most of the clients already do today. Then they can also put in their billing address and then say continue. The address is added here. Everything is confirmed. The user says yes, and then we go ahead and do the checkout process. And here's how we are showing all the tool calling that's happening just for the demo. And then we say order is complete. We kind of give the details about the order. Also, the post-purchase and the tracking of the order, all of that can be sent as an email notification for the user to kind of have a fast follow. It's on the advanced use cases where we have multiple merchants. Over to Agent Nitin.
Yeah, and then just a quick, before Nitin jumps in and shows us, so yeah, we covered the PayPal wallet users, the 2 different guest flows. So now we're transitioning into the advanced use cases that we're thinking about on what agents can do to unlock commerce in really unique ways, and really how to spread the different verticals that PayPal has to offer across all of our payment products here to give a quick taste of what that looks like.
So yeah, so as we were talking about the multi-merchant card flow, so it helps for PayPal to actually be able to process multiple transactions from multiple merchants through that flow. BNPL. So when you talk about buy now, pay later, now this is a capability that that user might actually want to trigger in a custom way. So if my purchase is above a certain amount, then I might want the BNPL flows to trigger. So the idea behind this is when the customer signs in, they might have multiple merchants. So each merchant might have a different integration with PayPal, and PayPal takes care of that for you. And then based on your price pick, a BNPL flow may or may not trigger. So that's, again, based on a customer facet or customer criteria. You might also be interested in price tracking. So for instance, the duration, the time at which you looked at the SKU price, it could have been higher than your preferred price. And you might be interested in triggering the purchase after it drops below a certain price. So that also is a capability that is quite essential in today's commerce, where you might want to conduct asynchronous purchases as compared to conducting purchases real time.
Yep.
Great. So as you can see here, the search query that the user is passing is they need a high quality North Face sleeping bag and 2 4-person tents, right? So 2 tents, and they are specific about the sleeping bag that they want. For the camping trip in September, they're specifying their budget, and they're also willing to pay more, and then also want to use buy now, pay later. So they're providing that preference there. So as you can see, the language model here actually helps you search through a catalog based on the user's preference. So there is a lot of tool calling that's happening in the background. The user's preferences are taken. You're actually looking at a catalog. You're picking up the preferences from the catalog, and then you're identifying SKUs that the user might be interested in purchasing. Awesome. So now the user specifies their preference, saying that they like 2 tents from the selection there, and also a North Face sleeping bag right there. So the preferences are identified there. Yeah. Now, again, this is another callback that happens from the language model, which goes back, executes a specific function, comes back and says, these are the specific assortments there. So for the 4-person tent, the first option, this is available for purchase through merchant 1. So this is a different merchant. And PayPal's also gone back and through rewards API, figured out the rewards that apply for that specific merchant. So this user has a rewards balance of $12.99 that can be applied for this purchase. So that also is a full end-to-end backend integration there. And then, as you see for the second purchase, the price trigger, the dollar value on this one was above the price threshold that the user specified. And so this was, again, going back to our wallet capabilities, and it was able to come back saying, I have a BNPL recommendation for you. So this was also executing an end-to-end pattern where the purchase price was actually handed back to the service, and then the response came back saying, you're BNPL eligible, and this is the BNPL payment that you'd have to make. So 4 interest-free payments of $48.75 there. The last one is a sleeping bag, which is outside the price target. So the user specified a price target. The tool callback figured that this was outside of the range. And then it actually triggered a price tracking offer for the user. That I could track this price for you, and then we could conduct this purchase to some extent asynchronously if needed later. So the user goes back and says to track the sleeping bag and go ahead with the purchase. We confirm the shipping address again here because the shipping address is available. This is a user known to PayPal. So this actually gives you a full order summary after checkout. So you see the first merchant, merchant 1. We have the price on the merchant. We have the loyalty discount that got applied, and also the estimated delivery along with the price that is owed. And then for the second merchant, no amount is due today because this was a BNPL eligible purchase. The first payment is due. The date is specified there, 2 weeks out. And then also the exact price is provided there with how much is each payment going to be. The third merchant, as we said, this was price tracking here. So since the price was trending higher than the user's preference, here the agent is offering to monitor the price and then send an email notification once the price drops below the threshold there. And then there is also a 1-week waiting period, which ends without the price drop. So this actually goes to show the overall end-to-end integration. You saw the number of decisions that were made by the language agent in the background, right? And this is not just a single set of APIs. It's multiple APIs that are triggered by a toolkit. And then there are also a lot of tools that actually sit as an interface ahead of the API calls or API integrations. So as you can see, apart from authentication and a lot of the nuances that we discussed in the previous sections, then there is also this other facet of how, if we go beyond authentication, what are the other characteristic traits of a typical PayPal toolkit? The second idea that we wanted to discuss here is subscriptions. Now, subscriptions can be incredibly tricky, right? So users might want to subscribe to a given service. They might want to suspend a service at any point in time. They might want to trigger a service back at a certain duration. You started your subscription in January, but you want to suspend it for a certain duration of time and get it kicked off maybe somewhere halfway past the mark. So you might have custom preferences towards your subscriptions. And so here what we are demonstrating is a typical subscription flow. So the user here has a preference towards a coffee, towards a certain coffee make and type. The agent goes back and discerns the various options that the customer could customize on. So you can see 2 options here, Trade Coffee and Beanbox, and there is a monthly subscription available for both of those. The user goes back and confirms that they want to go with the Beanbox with a small batch approach and free shipping. This is what we are demonstrating here is the tool callback, right? So as soon as the credit card details were validated, we initiated the subscription creation. And so what you can see here is a complete payload that specifies not only the toolkit, but then also the API calls that actually trigger right behind the toolkit. So there are API interactions. There's a creation of the subscription because now you have an agreement with the customer to actually bill them at a certain cadence. And if you keep scrolling, yeah. So you have your Beanbox. So this is basically the order confirmation following completion of subscription there. So yeah, so as the subscription service here again at this stage, if the user wants to suspend the service or they want to actually re-trigger the service at a later period of time, there can be abilities in the API or in the toolkit that can be harnessed there. So with these 2 flows, I think the broad conclusion is like once the user authenticated and identified, you could have a large number of custom options to make their experience more seamless, either for a subscription flow or just an ad hoc one-time flow, which also integrates back with not only their wallet, but also credit options like BNPL and so on, and price tracking and alerts. So kind of like an end-to-end solution there from a commerce point of view, not just the payment facet of it, but like also in some sense facilitating the commerce in more or less an end-to-end manner.
Yeah, so in this case, we're going back to the similar use case where user wants to buy a hoodie, but the user here is not a PayPal user, but they have done a transaction historically with PayPal. So we recognize from their email ID that we know this person, we know their address and card. Let's ask them saying that, hey, we recognize you, you're not a PayPal user, but still we have your card credentials and address because you asked us to save it, we have saved it for you, should we use it? And the user says, well, yeah, that's good. And they would be able to check out and buy the hoodie. So we kind of covered different use cases where one, the merchant is a PayPal merchant, then the user is a PayPal user. Then we have a merchant who is not a PayPal merchant, and then user who is not a PayPal user. Then the other combinations, right? So we kind of covered all the variations possible here with non-PayPal merchants and non-PayPal users, and PayPal merchants and PayPal users. So all of that is possible, everything is agentic, everything is in the chat, no one's like switching out of the chat interface, and everything is seamless. That's what I wanted to cover with.
Cool, great. I hope you enjoyed all these demos. Again, we covered all the grounds there. So yeah, I think just to sum it up here, we're enabling all the different use cases you talked about. We're handling all the compliance risk ourselves, so you don't have to think about it, and you're able to tap into that vast network of financial instruments that we had talked about in wallets and all the different use cases, guest accounts as well too. So thank you so much here. We would love to hear from you on any kind of questions you have. Please, please, please reach out to us anytime. That would make me so happy to hear that. So thank you very much. And happy to now start any Q&A questions that you all might have right now.
Yes.
Great question. So I think we have like formal channels as well, like go to PayPal AI. There's developer relations ways to do there, but I think yeah, find me on LinkedIn as well too, and I could get you set up too. So
send a pigeon.
Yep. On our social feeds. Yep. Yeah. Question.
Just to follow up on my question yesterday. Now, what's convinced that pays for e-commerce platforms kind of number? I mean, it's really fascinating to see all of this coming together. But you're going to have, I think we're going to have this moment where how do you buy, change?
Mm-hmm.
So I yesterday something about switching role base to something new. I'm curious. I mean, do you guys really see that from inside the house?
Can I add a bit to it?
Yeah, so I think this is very much new. We're in the early part of that life cycle right now. So I'm very eager to see how that starts to shift as well. But I think I have a firm belief that it is shifting in that direction as agentic interactions will be helping drive e-commerce. So I'm eager to see how that evolves. But I think what we're doing here is we're ensuring that we're prepared to enable that future of these different applications that we're excited to see come online.
Just to add on to what Ishan said, and echoing back the question for the audience as well. The question was, does PayPal see the e-commerce agentic space disrupting the entire, maybe should I call it an ancient way of e-commerce already? Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think it's more of an organic shift with all of the LLMs that got integrated with our day-to-day life. We see kids talking to LLMs these days and trying to do conversations, and it's so natural to them. I think that's where we are eventually getting, which is good. Of course, there are as a coin, there are always two sides. There could be some things that might be challenging or might need a mind shift on how we were doing e-commerce before to where we should eventually get. I was just joking the other day that we also have an other slide which we couldn't bring in. It was more about you think and we do the checkout. Or maybe we can predict that your shoe is old and we know your shoe size and color preference and we want to ship a shoe to you. If you like it, you keep it or return it, and we'll take care of the return too. So maybe we will get there. It's a very interesting space, and we are happy to be alive in this era.
Yeah, and completely second everything that Hemant and Hassan said there. Just to add a little bit more, so certainly we are moving more towards this lazy paradigm, right? I'm actually on a chat interface and I want to be as lazy as scrappy as possible and talking to the LLM and letting the overall language construct in the background drive the conversation, ask follow-up questions and so on. And this ends up being a ton of heavy lifting in the background. And so one important aspect here is how can we get reliable function calls and reliable tool calls? Because you do want to leave some decisions to the LLM, but you also want to bring some decisions back to the deterministic standards of the function. I want to call a specific function for this specific flow. I know this is the best integration pattern and so on. And that is kind of the know-how that then again is very custom to organizations like PayPal, which have been in this area and in this realm for a long period of time, where there is more or less an end-to-end view of the customer there, from their wallet to a point also of what they're purchasing, and also like all the use cases that the team talked about, whether the user is identified or unidentified, whether the merchant is integrated with PayPal or not. So all of these decisions that would otherwise go back to a sort of a stochastic LLM decision making now through very reliable function callback can come back to our APIs and our toolkits, which makes the experience more and more seamless there. So yeah, so it's a great question. How is shopper behavior going to change in the longer run? And I think there's going to be some that have a head start and some that that might not, on account of data or maturity of the LLM infrastructure and how the toolkits actually are structured there.
And I think the last thing to add there too is that what's unique about this in the commerce journey is the agent is able to handle the entire end-to-end commerce journey itself, from discovery and personalization to the payment flows to even the post-purchase tools. And we have this whole ground covered as well on all the tools that we're bringing online. So it's not like right now where you have to go through and you have a certain traditional e-commerce website for discovering things, and you got to go to the payment flows and then post-tracking. Everything is now centralized through one agent, through a suite of tools accessible. So I think this is really the power of what these agents can really offer to help kind of shape the space.
Can I just add to that?
Yep.
Just one thing to add about, platforms and
You need to come inside this.
one thing to add just about platforms and how to think about it. It is still, I think, unclear to us from a discovery perspective. It feels like every commerce site should have an agent on it. Because at the end of the day, if there's a particular boutique that you like to shop at, you may not actually want to go through a discovery tool that pulls up like across a bunch of different stores. And so I think that, as we think about the storefront needs to be equipped with agentic capabilities, because if people have become accustomed to interacting in this way, what I see commerce platforms having the ability to do in the future is really equipping the storefronts with this agentic capability, because particularly for small businesses, they're not going to have the power to build this all out themselves. And that's when they're going to be coming to you to really ask for your help in building this out so they can compete and have the same experience that you can get. It's something that's more centralized, but yet isn't going to give them as curated a response as they might want in particular instances. So I think, we've all talked about the fact that we don't really know exactly where shopping behavior is going. But I think if you had predicted that the amount of historical retail that happens in store would move online, and you think about how long that took, and then you think about this shift from, traditional, point and click and go through all the steps yourselves and feel that level of control. The other thing that we haven't really talked about is we're making a ton of assumptions that people disdain the process. But one of the things we learned is when you make things super fast, people actually get really nervous. And so we've, through time, actually had to introduce delays, because all of a sudden it made people feel like, wait, I wasn't totally right? So the human behavior will take longer than we think. I think what we're showing you is what's possible, but I still truly believe, for specialized items and things, and if you have preferences on a particular store, the reality is what we really need to do is equip those stores with the ability to provide that same level of experience that they're going to experience centrally. And be able to feed in that same preference data. And so that's the thing we're really excited about, is we think we're uniquely positioned to help with all of that personalization that you would otherwise have to be at a very large platform to achieve.
Awesome.
Great. Any other questions? Yeah, over there.
Yeah, all the contingencies. That's a great question, right? So go ahead. You want to talk from the API?
So that's where we showed the app alert. So if we want to do with any contingencies or any of those friction which come into play, we will not rely on the client. We'll make sure that at that time PayPal steps in and all your data and all your privacy concerns are actually redirected to PayPal app, or there would be a way where you can do it on the web itself if you're on the web. But PayPal wants to make sure that the user's data or privacy is not going to a third party. It's all on our ecosystem. So it will be an app alert. You will put your 3DS number there or your biometric there, and then the flow will go back to MCP client and MCP server.
And it could also be inline, like how we showed the card being rendered. It could also be an inline secured iframe that renders within the client. And then the 3DS, whatever code is needed, the user types in there. So it is secure. It's not passed to the LLM. Everything is opaque to the LLM. But the user and PayPal as an entity takes responsibility over all of the contingency.
We are thinking about micro UIs. Instead of giving the whole power to the MCP client and the LLM, we are saying that micro UIs would be sent back, and that would be the control between the PayPal and the buyer.
That's a great question.
Any other questions? Yeah. Yeah, are you just saying, are we thinking about personalization? Is that what you're looking more, or are you talking about when you say preferences?
So this is exactly why we are basically sharing this with you, so you can build those tools basically. So like we don't want to solve every problem. We want to partner with you to solve those, and we want you to think about those tools available for you to be able to address these kind of, let's say, more vertical kind of solutions.
Yeah.
And we'll be there in the hackathons and happy to help through all the MCP servers and the APIs that we have. And would be happy to see the travel hack.
Questions? Yeah.
Obviously, very early days, we talked a lot about the need for consumers to trust these features. Right? Is there anything that this group is particularly excited about that's reasonable that we will see in the next 8 months by maybe the end of the year that, from a consumer perspective, would be particularly interesting, whether use case or capability? Like, is there anything that in the short term that you're thinking about that's very exciting?
Yeah, I think short-term wise, we're super excited about these launches that we're working towards. I think long-term, I mean, this whole space, 8 months out, it seems like a light year away in this space here, you know. So, but I think if we start to see what that adoption here looks like, as far as agentic adoption when it comes to shopping, I think that's probably the one thing I'm most excited about, is seeing how that consumer behavior shifts from traditional e-commerce channels to agentic in the next 8 months. Overall adoption of these products, I would say. Yeah, great question. Great, we'll leave it at that then. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
That was great.